Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Talent Talks Online. I'm sorry, I think we had a little problem with the sound on the video, but we just wanted to present you quickly talent.io. How are you doing today? Where are you coming from? Just let us know. Just say hi on the chat. I know I'm always asking the same, but hello, Kashi from Muscat, Oman. Great.
Wow.
Hi, Michelle from Lyon. Slimane, doing great. Normandy, sunny. That's good. Wow. Hey, thank you guys. Marco from Mexico. Hi, Chuck. Hi, Cian. That's great. Thank you, guys. Hello again. So welcome to the 7th edition of the Talent Talks Online. We've been bringing several great speakers to you in the last few weeks in order to discuss HR tech subject and help you strive through this crisis. For the ones who've been following the series, I'm always really happy to be here with you. If you want to re-watch the videos or if you need anything, just go on our blog and check it out. We will also put the link there. So as I was saying, so the webinars that we are bringing to you are brought by talent.io. So if you are a software engineer, talent.io is definitely the simplest way for you to find your next opportunity all around Europe. And if you're recruiting or building your tech team, you can find the best tech profiles on our platform. So I will advise you to jump on our website after this and check it out. You may also be wondering if tech companies are still recruiting today. So we all know that we are living difficult times, and we don't really know. So if companies are still recruiting, what kind of activity is there, especially in Europe? So talent.io has spent the last few weeks analyzing the data of thousands of companies in order to build a comprehensive report on the topic of COVID-19 on tech recruitment. And this is especially to measure the activity. So you can now find it, we can find it on our website, but we will also share the link on the chat. Thank you, Jojo. Today, we're gonna spend around 45 minutes together. As usual, the chat is open, the Q&A section is also open, so just ask as many questions as you would like and we will definitely answer you. What I would like is, so we have the possibility just to turn on our mics and ask the questions live, and it's so much cool for me and for Gordon to have your questions, to hear your questions and to be able to interact with you. So if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand, and as soon as we can, we will allow you to turn on your mic. So during the last few months, a lot of teams still run really complex projects, but they are doing these 100% remotely. So I believe a lot of us are now virtual teams. And when we turn into a virtual team, how do we do in terms of projects, and how do we approach projects, and how do we organize ourselves? How do leadership need to adapt also? How do we create a strong culture, and how do we motivate our teams? So today I'm really happy to be here with Gordon. So Gordon Tredgold is here with me and he accepted my invite. So thank you so much. Gordon is a former, sorry about that. So that's the beauty of alive and having a new dog at home. So Gordon is a former corporate warrior who successfully delivered complex projects. He ran $300 million departments and led global teams of thousands of people. He had helped clients reduce their operational costs, increase their performance, and helped entrepreneurs triple their revenues in just 12 months. So now Gordon is a keynote speaker on leadership, employee engagement, and operational excellence. Hi, Gordon. Thank you so much for joining me, accepting my invite, and so sorry for my dog.
That's I'm sure we've all been on conference calls where the dog has contributed nicely, usually at a critical moment as well.
That's it. Yeah, I'm just talking like a few minutes, and that happens, but that's okay.
But it's interesting, for people to know that we've been online for 30 minutes and the dog didn't bark until you were live.
Exactly, that's
It
true.
waited for its moment.
Thank you, Gordon, for saying that. Perfect. So, Gordon, I will let you talk and also share your screen. So we're gonna stop sharing, and the show is yours.
Okay, so let me just share the screen.
Yeah, that's working.
Okay, cool. So, hi everybody. My name is Gordon Tredgold, and as Melanie said, I've worked for best part of 30 years in IT, delivering projects for companies like Henkel, DHL, and I've worked all over the world, led teams of 1,000 people, and I did that for around 25 years, and then I decided that what I wanted to do is I wanted to get into speaking and coaching people how to be better leaders, and I've written a couple of books on leadership and also on how to drive operational performance. And just recently, I've actually been brought back into the project and program management world, and I've been working with a well-known service provider to help them deliver some large complex projects. And today what I want to talk about is one of those projects and some of the techniques that I use to try and drive deliver the project and drive operational performance through increasing engagement in a virtual environment. So I've been involved in delivering projects for 25 years, and for some of you will be a similar age to me. For the first 10 years, the projects that I ran, they were all run where 100% of the people were not only in the same building, but often in the same office as me, and I could see all of the people. And when you've got that kind of setup, it's very easy to drive engagement and create highly engaged teams, because you've got that opportunity to have face-to-face meetings. You're immediately accessible. Teams can come up to you and speak to you, and you can use one of my favorite management techniques, which is managing by walking around. And then the next 10 years of my career, as I moved up the ladder, I started to manage distributed teams where I was managing people in different buildings. And then it would extend to becoming leading global projects where I had teams in my building, teams in different countries, different time zones, and also working with a lot of offshore providers. So not only did we not have the physical relationship with them by being in the same proximity, these people actually worked for different countries, and again had to adapt the engagement techniques where we couldn't use as much of the company benefits to leverage engagement and with the teams, but had to actually focus more on inspiring people. And then just recently, I was asked by Fujitsu to deliver one of the largest data center migrations to Azure. And when I was offered that project, this was actually pre-lockdown, and that project was going to be 100% virtual. Not only was it a virtual teams, but a lot of the teams were actually in different countries, different time zones, so that I had zero chance of seeing any of the people face to face. And I'd never worked with these people either. So from a standing start, we had to deliver the project. It was a mission critical project, and we had 4 months in which to deliver it. And I'm now in a virtual environment where I'm not going to meet any of the people face to face, and I don't know any of the people at all. I have no pre-existing relationship that I can leverage to help drive the engagement. So that really caused me to change the way I was looking to engage with the teams and drive that project. And normally what I do when I run projects is I use an approach called FAST. It's an approach that I've developed based on being a turnaround expert, understanding what are the things that cause projects to fail. And normally they fail because of a lack of focus. We're not clear about what our goals or objectives are, a lack of accountability. We don't have clear roles and responsibilities. We haven't created a culture of accountability. So nobody really takes ownership of the project. It's too complex. We lack simplicity, or it's a lack of transparency where we don't really know what's fully involved. Projects tend to, I think it was Gartner said that projects tend to cost 3 times their initial estimate. And this is usually because we lack that transparency up front, and then we don't have that visibility into our performance in order to be able to make changes as we go. So normally on a project, these are the 4 things I focus on. Focus, getting clarity around the goal and the objective. Accountability, clear roles and responsibility. Simplicity, if we can explain the approach that we're going to take, how we're going to be successful, simply in a way that people can understand it, that will get them to believe that we'll be successful. And then if we've got transparency, we understand what's involved, and we have clear feedback mechanisms. Normally those 4 things are enough to be able to successfully deliver a project. They help to create engaged teams and then drive the project. But given this environment of a critical project, extremely short time scale, and a team I'd never worked with where it was going to be virtual, I actually had to change the approach and add some more things to it. And also some of these, they weren't immediately obvious to me, and I had to learn through understanding, a little bit of trial and error as we went. But what I found was that these 3 things I had to add to that mix in order to make the project successful. And this is what I'm going to go through in detail: the engagement, empowerment and recognition, because those were the 3 things that allowed me to take the team who were fairly engaged because they'd been involved in the project for 3 to 4 months prior to me joining it. But it was the engagement, empowerment and recognition, making a positive effort in those 3 areas, which allowed me to drive the engagement to highly engaged and successfully deliver the team. Now, if you want to understand more about focus, accountability, simplicity and transparency, you can get in touch with Melanie after this event, where we'll be giving a PDF of my book Fast that explains those. But for this, we're just going to go through, and I'm going to talk about engagement, empowerment and recognition. As I say, those were the things that really were the differentiators. And I'm going to talk about what I mean by that, why it's important, and how we can drive it and improve in those areas so we can create the highly engaged teams. So the first thing I want to talk about is engagement. And before I get into that, we just want to run a quick poll, and I want to ask the question: who is accountable for creating engaged teams? Who is accountable for employee engagement? So thanks, Melanie, for putting that up. If we can just have a look and see, who do you think is accountable for driving employee engagement? So at the moment, it looks around 3/4. It's for both, 28% for managers. Just leave a bit longer for people to put their answers in. We should have asked the question, are you a manager or an employee as well? That might have given us a little bit insight and understanding into the answers. Okay, well, I think we've got enough to see where we're going on this, and it looks like around 1/3 of people think it's the manager's responsibility, and 2/3 think it's the employees, is accountable for driving employee engagement. Well, I hate to disagree with the people that have joined in the poll, but actually it's the leader's job to engage the team. Yes, the employees are responsible to some level for being engaged, but it's actually the leader's job to create an engaged team. And it should be our number one goal to drive up employee engagement. And I've worked with a lot of people who said to me, oh no, it's not my job to create an engaged team. And in fact, if I could get rid of my team and replace them with an engaged team, then everything would be even better. But the reality is, one, it's a lot cheaper to replace a manager who can't engage a team, and you can do that quicker and cheaper than to replace an entire team. And secondly, as I say, it's the leader's job to engage the team. And one of the problems with that is that what is it that causes people to be disengaged? And here's a paradox that I find that I just wanted to mention as we go through this, because when you look at the Gallup poll, what Gallup says is that in the US, around 33% of people are engaged, with 67% disengaged. And we run a lot of employee engagement surveys, and we tell the employees, you need to do this, you need to do that. But actually, if you look at the surveys for management engagement is running at a lower number, which is 30%. And given that it's a leader's job, a manager's job to drive engagement, if the manager's not engaged, then the team are unlikely to be engaged, because management defines culture. And if we are not engaged, then our teams are not going to be engaged. So the first thing we need to do is we need to be engaged ourselves. Then some of the other things that we need to do as we're looking to drive engagement is we need to involve people in the projects more than normally, because when our teams are remote, it's very easy for them to become distracted. I've seen it on projects where if we don't involve them enough, then they might get, especially if they're in a matrix position, they might get work from somewhere else. And if they can make progress in that area or are being involved, we can lose some of their time. A lot of the people on my project were only available or only booked to me for 60%, and we need to make sure we've got that 60%. So what we need to do is we need to involve people more. How do we do that? We want to invite them to more meetings. I had a test manager, and I invited him to all of the kickoff meetings. I had him involved in all of the analysis and design meetings. And one of the things he said to me was, normally I don't attend these meetings. Why are you bringing me to these meetings? I said, well, I want you to be engaged in these meetings. I want you to understand what's going on, because when we're in that virtual world, we have often a significantly reduced amount of communication. And by having more people in the meetings, and not necessarily in an active role, but in a listening role, we can communicate more with them, and they can understand more. Also as well, when we've got people in meetings, we've got to reach out to them. Engagement and leadership, it's a contact spot. We've got to reach out, ask people questions, ask what we think, what do they think, get their input, get their advice. The more we involve them, the more we include them, the more engaged they're going to be feeling. So it's up to us. We've got to reach out, and we've got to pull people into the project. We also need to be running daily stand-up meetings. The project I had, it wasn't strictly an agile project. We ran it in an agile way because we were running in a virtual environment. And by having the daily stand-up meetings, what we did was it allowed us, every morning we'd have the meeting at 9:30. Got to find a time that fits all of the time zones. And we've got to have those meetings for a couple of reasons. One, it gives us a barometer. If people are attending the meetings, we can see how much they're engaging. And also it gives us an opportunity to ask them, what have you done? what are the issues, what are you going to do? And it gives us an opportunity to give them some positive feedback, address issues, but make them feel like they're involved. And the more involved we can have them, the more opportunity for them to become not just engaged, but highly engaged. It also gives us an opportunity to communicate regularly as well. And it sets the tone for the day. Get the people involved and engaged early, and they're more likely to be engaged throughout the day. And then the last thing that we need to do is one of my favorite tools as a leader, and one of the things that I find has the biggest impact is management by walking around, just dropping in, seeing people, because when you've got review meetings or daily stand-ups, sometimes people don't feel comfortable about raising an issue or mentioning a concern, and they would rather do it in private. And when we don't have those opportunities for face-to-face to bump into them while getting a coffee or them coming to our office, what we've got to do is we've got to try and recreate that management by walking around, by using the tools like chat and reaching out to people, taking the time, maybe it could be having one-to-ones. I have a colleague who he's now implemented for the first time ever skip level meetings, because he wants to be able to understand what's going on from his perspective, but also give people an opportunity to feel that they're heard, to feel that they're important, in order to drive up their engagement. And he's even thinking about now, as we come out of COVID and they actually are in an environment where they do run pretty much on site, continuing with that practice in order to retain the levels of engagement. And when we reach out to people, it might just be some of the social interaction that we need to do, because when we're in these virtual environments, we are pretty much isolated, and a lot of people do miss that social aspect. So quite often, when I kick the one-to-ones off, I'll take time to talk about their family, how are they doing, before I get into the work. Now it does eat into the time, because I do need to make myself available and accessible to do that. But what I've found with that is, by doing that, it does drive up people's involvement, it does drive up their engagement, and it does give them an opportunity to give me some early warnings of issues that we're facing. So 3 tips for driving up the engagement: involve people, reach out and pull them in. Have the daily stand-up meeting so we set the tone for the day. It also gives you an opportunity to see, are people attending? And if they're not, that's a sign of disengagement. And then you can reach out to them and find out what's going on. And then increase your one-to-one interaction with everybody across the project, so that you give them an opportunity to give you some early warning. And to make them feel involved, because when people are involved, they'll feel committed and connected. I was trying to say connected then, which isn't a word. So it makes them feel more connected and committed to the project. So that's engagement. We've got to go out and engage with our teams. The next piece that we need to do is empowerment. And what do I mean by empowerment? Empowerment is about putting people into a position where they feel comfortable about taking ownership and successfully delivering on the result. And this is important because when people are working at home, and the majority of the people I worked with, about 10% were in offices but virtual, so they had a little bit of interaction, but around 80 to 90% of the people actually worked from home, so they are on their own, and we've got to put them into a position where they can be successful and make progress without us, so that they can remain engaged and involved in the project. Now, a quick question about empowerment. Quick poll, Melanie. In order to empower people, does that mean more rules? Does it mean less rules? Or does that depend? So to empower people, does it mean more guidelines, less guidelines, the same, or depends? So what we've seen here, so we've seen about 26% think it's less, 61 depends, around 8% more, and 3% the same. got about half the people, so let's just see where we are. Give you a little bit more time on this. Okay, so 62% of you, 60% of you thinks it depends. Well, actually, in my opinion, you're right. What's interesting is that 28% of people think it's less. And normally when I ask people, do you think it requires more guidelines or less? Most people say it requires fewer guidelines. But actually, more often than not, we have to give enough guidelines. And if we're not giving enough, then we have to give more. If I tell you, here's my credit card, go buy a car, what are you going to do? When you go out there, there are too many options. You don't know exactly what it is I'm looking for. And that's going to stop you from making a decision for a couple of reasons. One, you don't know what success looks like. And secondly, you're not going to want to get the answer wrong. So that will cause you to not make a decision, come back and check with me. When you're coming back and checking with me, you're not empowered. So we need to make sure that we have the right level of information. And as I say, this is why it depends, because it depends on your leadership style, their level of expertise, and the type of direction that you normally give. If you've got a very laissez-faire style and you don't give a lot of guidance, then you're not going to be giving people enough of a framework in order to empower them, because they're going to feel like there's too many choices, too many options. That puts them into overwhelm. It makes it difficult for them to do to make the choice and make progress. So they become disengaged, or they're going to come back to you and keep asking lots of questions. Or if you give too much information and direction, people are going to feel micromanaged. And when they feel micromanaged, then they don't take ownership. They're just following orders. And when people are following orders, there's no ownership, there's no real engagement. They're just order takers and order processors. And that's not really what empowerment is. So what we've got to do is we've got to find that middle ground where we're giving people enough information to be able to go and do the work and feel comfortable that they're going to be able to get it right. So if I give you my credit card and say, go buy a car, and I tell you I want a dark colored German sedan that's done between 30 and 40,000 kilometers and don't spend more than 30,000 euros, that gives you a framework in which you can go and make a decision, look at the options and see which one fits best to those criteria, make the choice and come back and work on it. And this is what we want to do when we're looking to empower people. It's not about giving a clear order with 100% detailing what we want, because that's not empowering people. That's just giving instructions, and that's not going to get anybody excited. And we need to give that little bit of leeway, that opportunity to think about it and make choices if we want to get people to grow and develop. And that's one of the other advantages of empowering people. Not only does it allow them to go on and be successful without as much guidance as we'd like to give within that framework, but it also allows them to develop as well. And we want our teams to be able to work independently and move forward, but we also want them to develop. So we need to make sure we get that balance right. So 3 things that we can do to drive up empowerment. As I said, we need to clearly define the outcome we're looking for. Give a framework, not the exact answer, but a framework of what we're looking for, and then leave them to get on with it. So as part of the Azure migration, we had to do run books that detailed every single step of how we were going to do the migration from the on-site infrastructure that we had into the Azure cloud. And what I told the person who was responsible for that area is, look, what I want is I want us to be able to review, have a clear document which details every single step, but I want us to be able to go through it, review it with the teams, get them to sign off for it, and make sure that before we start it, it's been completely reviewed, signed off by our engineers, signed off by the customer. So when we're moving forward, we're doing that on a really robust basis. And I said to him, you know, one of the things we could do is we could just have a review meeting to see how it went. Just have a sign-off meeting, and let's get everybody in, and we could go through it step by step. I said, but this is your area, you're responsible. The outcome I'm looking for is clear, defined run books that have been signed off by the stakeholders. And about a week later, I was asking him, how's it going? 2 weeks later, how's that going? And he said to me, oh, it's going great. And I said, how were the meetings? Because I attended the first one just in a listening brief, and they felt a little bit slow moving, as if we didn't have the right, or you know, people hadn't done the prep work. We were too many questions, not enough answers. And he said, oh, I've stopped the meetings. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, what we're doing now is we have a series of back and forth. We create the document, we send it out, they comment on it. We go through 3 iterations. And then once we've gone through and we think we've got to the end of it, we just sit down. We have a meeting where we go through about 10 run books and we just sign them off one after another. And I was like, great, exactly what I want. But what I didn't do is I didn't tell him to do it in that way. And because I'd empowered him and given him the option to develop the approach that he was looking for, he took ownership of that, looked at the approach we were using, saw it wasn't working, and changed the approach in order to deliver the outcome that I'm looking for. That's what happens when we empower people. So we need to give them a definition of the outcome we're looking for, and then leave them to get on with determining how they're going to be able to do it. We also need to confirm that they have the tools for the job. If we try to empower people, but they don't have the tools to do the job, now they can't be successful. People only feel empowered when they know that they can be successful. It's the same with the framework. If there are too many choices, they don't know what success looks like, that will put them into overwhelm. If we don't give them the tools to do the job, they're going to look at that and think, I can't do this. They're not going to feel empowered. And the easiest way to make sure they've got all the tools is to ask them, do you have all the tools? And when they say yes, not only do they become empowered, but they've actually accepted accountability. We can't make people accountable. People have to accept accountability. And by asking them, do you have the tools you need in order to do this successfully? When they say yes, they've accepted accountability and they've become empowered. And then the last thing that we need to do is we need to give them matching authority. If we give people, I see this far, far too often, especially from leaders who are not confident. They want to hold on to the power. They want to hoard the power. Happy to give the task away, but won't give the power or the authority that goes with it. And when we do that, we're actually disempowering our people. So what we have to do is we have to give them matching levels of authority. So on the project that I ran, I involved my test manager right the way throughout the start, did that to make him feel important, involved, and also to let other people know that testing was important to me, but I also gave him the authority. I was crystal clear to him that he was the deciding voice on testing, not me. He was the head of testing. He was accountable, so he got to decide what was good testing, what was insufficient testing. And not only did I tell him that, I actually covered that in meetings when people said to me, what do you think, Gordon? I said, hey, this is with Trevor. He's accountable for testing. He'll let you know whether it's right or wrong. And this did 2 things. One, it made him feel important because now he had the authority to make the decisions. And secondly, it actually made him take ownership for that work. And he was significantly more committed to the job we did. And he worked, I think it was 14 weekends in a row, making sure that we had the testing exactly the way he wanted it, that we were doing it to the quality that we wanted, and that when we were finished with it, we were going to be successful. And he did that because he felt empowered. He felt highly engaged and he felt empowered. And this was his area and he was going to own it. So we've got to empower people. We do that by giving clearly defined outcomes that we're looking for. And then we leave them to figure out the how. We've got to give them a little bit of wiggle room if we want them to be able to develop when we define that outcome. We need to confirm that they've got the tools and understanding to be able to do the job. If they don't, they're not going to be able to be successful, and they're not going to feel empowered. And then lastly, we've got to give them matching levels of authority. And when we do that, and we've got teams that are highly engaged, that feel empowered, now our team is really rocking and rolling and in a position to achieve great results. And then the last thing we need to add to this, and again, you know, I used to do all of these things, but I had to do them even more so in the virtual environment, is recognition. And recognition is critical to the successful delivery of projects. And I've got a question that we want to do a quick poll again, if you want to put that up, Melanie. When do we start to recognize people? And the question, I think the options we've got are, do we recognize first efforts? Do we recognize first successes? Or do we save the recognition until we've completed the project? So if we could, all right, we've got, it was interesting. The first one was on completion. So at the moment, it looks like 2/3 think first efforts, 1/3 think first small successes, and around 8% think on completion. Okay, let's just get a few more people in on the vote, because I'm always interested by this one, partly because my opinions completely differ to a lot of the people that I work with, and given that I follow my approach and the majority of my projects are successful and others aren't, I'm always surprised that we have that disparity. Okay, so we've got about 54% of the people answered. So 48% think first efforts, 43% we should save the recognition for the first successes, and around 9–10% think that we should start the recognition on completion. So for me, recognition is critically important. And recognition, the reason it's important is because what gets recognized gets repeated. And I'm a firm believer in that. So when we recognize people, we're not just recognizing them for the job they've done, we're also recognizing them to encourage them for the next piece of work they're going to do. So where I start with recognition is I start with efforts. And why do I start with efforts? Well, I start with efforts because effort, when we repeat it, will lead to the small successes. And then I can celebrate and recognize the small successes. And big successes are usually an accumulation of small successes. For our data center migration, we had 140 servers to migrate. We migrated 14 a week. So we had 14 separate, sorry about that. We had 14 separate successes that we were able to celebrate that led to the overall project. And normally when I tell people we need to start celebrating efforts, people tell me, no, you're wrong. And I worked for one company and they said, we never celebrate effort. We never even celebrate the early successes. We normally wait until the big success, until it's all done, before we celebrate and recognize it. And I asked them, how many big successes do you have? And it went a little bit quiet. They said, well, not that many. And I said, yeah, because we've got to start with recognizing effort. And they told me, no, you're wrong. And I said, okay, do you have any children? And he said, yeah, I've got 2 little boys. Why do you ask? I said, well, when your first baby boy, when he made that decision to stand up and take his first 2 paces and he dropped onto his bottom, what did you do? And he said, well, we cheered. We videoed it. We called our friends and family in to get them to come and look at it and cheer as well. And I said, well, why would you do that? Why would you cheer somebody's first 2 steps? It's not like they've broken the 100-meter world record. It's not like they've just run a marathon. They've taken 2 steps and plonked down onto their bottom. They said, That's because we want to encourage them to get up again. I was like, really? And they said, yeah, we want them to get up again and again and again and again. And if they do that, what we'll find is that they'll go from taking 2 to 3 steps to being able to walk across the room, to being able to walk, to being able to run, to being able to maybe break the 100-meter world record or run a marathon. And it all starts with celebrating those first steps. And I said, yes. And it's exactly the same with our teams. We have to recognize their efforts, because it's those small efforts that when they repeat them are going to turn into small successes. And it's those accumulation of small successes that are going to deliver our big success. So here are 3 things that we need to do as we building our successes. We've got to start by recognizing effort. We've then got to build quick wins into our journey. And for us, it was about making sure the first run books were signed off on the project. Then it was about the first migration. Then it was about each and every migration. And that allowed us to celebrate, recognize people's effort, build a culture where people were appreciated. And this all feeds into their basic human needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. After food, shelter, and safety, our needs become a feeling of esteem, a feeling of recognition, a feeling of self-worth. And recognizing people's efforts, the good jobs they're doing, the results, all feed into those basic needs and get us committed to being involved as we go along. So we need to do that. And when we create the quick wins, not only does it help to feed that recognition, but it also confirms that the approach that we are taking is being successful. And as we start to see little successes, success becomes addictive. We start to create a culture of success. People start to look and expect to be successful. And we can just keep raising the bar of what we celebrate. And what you'll find is the performance will follow it. I've done this in multiple companies, and it's the same. It always happens. You just keep raising the bar, recognize the success, recognize the efforts, and people will follow that until they arrive at the big success. And then lastly, what we need to do is we need to create progress reports that track our success. Create a plan of success. And a lot of you will be familiar with burn down charts, burn up charts. These are brilliant because it allows us to show the progress we're making. And we want to be sharing those frequently with our teams, not only to just recognize the teams and individuals, but as a reminder that we are making progress, that we are on track, that things are going well. Or if they're not, for us to be able to take corrective action and get things back on track. But when teams see us making the progress, it not only allows us to build motivation and momentum, it also encourages us to keep going forward, because what gets recognized gets repeated. And if people can see themselves as successful and being more successful, they will continue to do that. And when we're working in a virtual environment, this is even more important than when we're in a collective environment. So those are the 3 things that I've focused on, in addition to my normal standard project management, the things that I had to do to that next level in order to drive a virtual program was engagement. You've got to reach out, get people involved. Leaders are accountable for driving engagement, not the teams, the leaders. So we've got to reach out, get people involved, include them, make sure we're accessible to them if they want to engage back with us. Then we need to focus on empowerment. Make sure they've got clarity of what we're looking for them to do. Make sure they've got the tools available in order to be successful, and that we've given them matching levels of authority. And then the last thing, it's recognition. We've got to start by recognizing the baby steps, those first efforts, and then we can start to move on to the small successes, the bigger successes that are going to lead on to the larger successes. And if you want to create a culture of success, it all starts with a culture of recognition. So drive engagement, drive empowerment, drive recognition. And if you can do that, that will help you create a highly engaged team that will be successful. Thank you. So now we can go on to questions.
Thank you so much, Gordon.
I felt like I was a bit conscious of the time, so I was trying to get through it all as quickly as I could. Didn't want to miss anything out.
That's perfect. Jordan, we have a bunch of questions here.
Cool.
I'm going to start with Jonathan's one, who asked, could the risk by recognizing at first efforts and not successes lead to self-satisfaction and further risk of letdown?
Yeah, absolutely. My son, when he was 12 months old, he took 2 steps. We cheered. He sat down, never got up, and walked again for 4 years. No, I'm sorry. It doesn't lead to self-satisfaction. You've got to recognize efforts. Everybody wants to be recognized. Now, I'm not saying that we go out and paint the town red and we shout it from the highest rooftops, but we've got to give them that encouragement. Recognition. If you want to create a culture of success, it starts with a culture of recognition. And the great thing about recognition, it's reciprocal. The more people you give recognition to, the more recognition you'll get back yourself. So please do not wear. I've worked with teams where we were achieving 0, and I mean 0 SLA attainment. So I started to recognize the teams, even though the performance was 0, for creating an accurate report. I wanted to encourage them to keep creating the reports so we could keep them focusing on, all right, now we understand what the problem is, let's start to fix that. And taking that approach, in 2 years, we went from 0 SLA attainment up to 99.7% SLA. Now, obviously, once we moved out of the basement, I wasn't recognizing them for just delivering the report, but we've got to recognize those efforts. What gets recognized gets repeated, and it's a repetition of effort that will lead to success. I'm passionate about that.
And also, Jonathan was asking another question at the beginning. Maybe I had the answer, but how do we describe a virtual stand-up meeting?
So we can do a virtual stand-up meeting. We just did them on Skype. So we used to have a daily meeting. I invited every single member of the team. We were on Skype, and I would just go around the entire team, and it would take no more than 30 to 45 minutes. Just ask people, you know, what are you up to? What are you going to be focused on today? What are the challenges? And what we're trying to do is we're just trying to get them involved, and it's a barometer check for engagement. If people don't turn up, they're not engaged. That's a sign, and then we can go and find out and get them re-engaged.
Great. We have Mary asking, what are your thoughts on leveraging insights in the engagement conversations?
What are my thoughts on leveraging insights in the engagement conversations?
Maybe if Mary is still here, if you want to
if you want to explain that to me, I'm
yeah.
not smart enough to understand that.
Let's see if Mary is still here.
I mean, I would say, you know, as a rule, leverage whatever insights you can.
Mary.
Hey, Mary, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
can hear you, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Okay, hi. So what I meant by insights and disc, those are personality.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying, right? So like just building that into your conversation. That's what I meant by that.
So could you repeat the full question again?
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on when you're having those conversations on motivating people? You know, like everybody's different, right? Some people are yellow, some people are blue, some people are green. So, you know what I mean? Some people are D's, and all those personality tests that we've taken, you know, I don't know that all leaders leverage those. So that's why I threw the question out.
Yeah, well, there's a great tool called Crystal Knows. It's a plugin that you can use with LinkedIn, and it will actually tell you people's personality types on LinkedIn. And I've actually used it to do a quick assessment of the people on my team. And it is important to know, because one of the things I talk about in terms of recognition should be public. It should be relevant, it should be authentic, it should be immediate, it should be specific, and it should be enthusiastic. But actually, some people, they don't want public recognition. They would much rather just get an email or be told on their own, good job, well done. They don't want to be put onto a pedestal. They just want a little bit of one-on-one time. So yeah, we've got to adapt to the people. I think this is one of the things that's hardest in leadership. People tell me all the time, oh, the people need to adapt to me as a leader. Actually, you need to adapt to them as a leader. And I do that in two ways. One, I try to take my messages up a level so that I can try and communicate in a way that everybody understands. But then what I need to do is I need to understand the people that work with me, because I've got to understand their response. And some people, you know, we see it all the time with different cultures. Some people will say yes and they mean yes. Some will say yes and they mean maybe. And some will say yes and what they mean is hell no. And we've got to know who the people we are that we're dealing with. And if we don't engage with people, then we don't know who they are and we can't understand what their response means in the context of their personality types. And this is why I say it's leaders that have to be accountable, because we're the ones that have got to understand the message that's coming back to us.
All good, Mary?
Yes, I'm still probably on mute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
We have another question from Quiddy, who is asking, is there a thing called over-engaging?
Yeah, I think so. And this comes back to Mary's point of, you know, what are the insights that you're learning from engagement? And some people need a lot more engagement. Some people just want to be left alone to get on with it. And we've got to make sure that, you know, we are engaging at the right level. And again, this is why I say it's the leader's responsibility, because we've got to be able to understand that and judge that. Now, I'm more concerned about under-engaging than over-engaging. If I had to make a mistake, I would rather do it on the over-engagement rather than the under-engagement. But yeah, we have to understand individual people's needs. For me, that wouldn't mean people saying to me, "Oh, I don't want to come to the daily stand-up because you're over-engaging." This is a two-way. This is a barometer check. This is a communication information share. But some people, you know, wanted to have daily conversations with me. Other people were quite happy to just speak on an as-needed basis. As I say, just to be left alone. So yeah, we've got to read the room and engage at the right level to keep them highly engaged.
Great. And Quizzy has another question. How do you make sure everyone is doing their work? And how do you best report on progress or have a view on what everyone is doing?
Okay, so for me, that's dead easy. Within the FAST approach, I talk about this, but also with the empowerment, we define outcomes. We define outcomes. Everything, you know, we need to be setting SMART goals, and SMART goals have measurable outcomes, and then we get them to track their actual performance against those outcomes. If I go on a diet, what you don't want to know is how many salads did I eat this week. You don't want to know, did I eat a Big Mac? What you want to know is get on the scales. Let's see what you weighed Monday. Let's see what you weigh on Friday. So we want measurable results that are tied to outcomes. It's not just about tasks. It's not just about hours. It's about outcomes. And if you can't define a measurable outcome, which comes from a SMART goal, then you shouldn't be in project management. A bit harsh, but that's my. It's the only way you'll know. Otherwise, it's just subjective, and we've got to be objective. Because objectivity allows us to be fair, and being fair drives engagement.
Great, thank you. We have another one. How would you communicate and execute matching authority?
So you said that again?
How would you communicate, execute matching authority?
So I think, so once I've given somebody the you know, it was like for the testing when I made my, you know, the test manager, I wanted him to own that area. I told him that he had the final say. I gave him the matching authority. If you'll know when you're not given the right levels of authority, when people have to keep coming back to you and asking you a question. And what we need to do is we've got to be, you know, the thing about leadership, which once you understand this and can implement it, it will be a game changer for you. And that is that leadership power needs to be shared. The more people you can share it with, the more impact you're going to have. If you hoard the power, you become a limitation, because everything has to go through you. And if everything has to go through you, it's limited to your capacity. So we've got to share the power, let people make the decisions, let the people own the decisions. But when with empowerment, we do that within a framework. So if I tell you that you can buy me a black German sedan that's done 30,000 up to 30,000 kilometers and up to 30,000 euros, any car that you bring back that meets those criteria is the right car, even if I don't like it, because you've met the objective. I gave you that authority. And that's another way that we can make sure we've got matching authority, that if we give people the job and they come back with something that we didn't expect or don't like, we can't complain about it. Because if we complain about it, we're basically saying, I didn't give you the authority to do that. And you're taking that authority back for them. So it's a difficult balancing act, but you can always ask people, do you feel you have the authority, the required level of authority to be able to get this done? I had a really good boss that I worked with that really helped me with empowerment. And I went to see him and I said, well, we've got a problem with X. And he's like, okay, what do you think we should do? And I said, I think we should do this. So do you think that'll work? I said, yeah. And he went, go do it. Went, okay. Came back. I said, we've got a problem with Y. And he went, okay, what do you think we should do? And I said, I think we should do this. Do you think that will work? And he said, yeah. And he said, go do it. And I went to see him with a problem. And I said, we've got a problem with Z. And I said, and you're going to ask me what I should do. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to ask me, do I think that's going to work? And when I say, yeah, go do it. And he said, yeah. What does that tell you? I said, I should just get on with it and maybe just come and let you know when I've done it. And he went, yeah, but thanks for involving me in your developmental growth. So we've got to give people that opportunity to grow, you know, an opportunity to fail sometimes, but to do that, they need the authority.
That makes completely sense. We have Anthony, I think, needs an advice. So I'm working with a small team of engineers around the world, and most of them are working part-time. I find really hard to involve part-time engineers remotely. We all have different time zones, and everybody is so busy all the time. What would be good, a good set of guidelines, to engage everybody?
So I would try and find a common time that works for everybody to do a daily stand-up. I'm just doing a network project at the moment, and we're just about to move to daily stand-ups 3 times a week, and I've got to find the right time to do that. And I think one of the things I learned from a boss whose name I don't want to mention was that we have to be flexible. It's our job to engage. So we need to look and see what's the best time for the team. I worked for a boss who, for him, the best time was always 9 o'clock. And he didn't care whether that was 2 in the morning for you or 2 o'clock at night, 3 in the afternoon. This is the best time for me, and we're doing it then. We've got to be flexible, try and find a time that works for everybody. Even if it's only 30 minutes, if you've got a small team, just try and find a 30-minute opportunity to get people together. And if you can't do it every day, maybe do it twice a week. As I say, we had an aggressive 4-month project. And when I'm doing 4-month projects against an aggressive date, I like to have regular heartbeat meetings. If it's a 12-month project, we might have just done 2 a week, 1 a week. It would depend on the team. But in this instance, I'd never worked with them before, so I wanted to get that culture. But yeah, I would look to try and find at least 1 or 2 time slots where you could have everybody on the call together. I mean, one question I would ask is, are the people engaging with each other, or is everybody just working in isolation? Anthony.
Let me see if we can ask Anthony. So if Anthony can talk to us. Anthony, if you want, you can activate your mic.
Yeah, so we all have different responsibilities, but some of them are working in China and they have their job, and others are working in Switzerland and they have a completely other set of jobs. So sometimes they have, I mean, related things to do together.
So they've got to collaborate and cooperate.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
But it, sorry?
No, go ahead.
But sometimes for weeks, they will have their own projects. So that's hard to collaborate.
Oh yeah, it is if the people are intermittent, but I would still set up a couple of meetings, maybe 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock is a good time where, you know, wherever the working day, for you 9 o'clock, but between 4 and 5 for them. So at least that you can have, you know, and just call it your a regular collaboration and cooperation meeting. And if they're not involved in a project, then maybe they don't need to attend. If they are involved, then people pop in and attend that. But you've got to try and set some, you know, regular rhythm, because if you don't do that, you're almost setting an expectation of it doesn't matter whether we engage or not. So set the meeting up and give people an opportunity to find a way to attend it. And if they're available and need to collaborate and cooperate, then they'll join the meeting. If they're not working on the project, then maybe they won't. But, you know, maybe share minutes from that meeting so people are at least aware of what's going on. We've got to create a sense of community. It's very easy to become isolated. And if you become isolated, you know, we all want to make progress. So if I can make progress on somebody else's project, why would I work on yours? So we've got to, you know, set, you know, leader's job, you know, engage them and then set them up for success. And if you can do that, you know, people will work miracles for you. So we've got to, you know, give that option.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you. We have a last question from Maisam. How important do you think it is to also participate in non-work related activities to increase engagement at work? Example, digital drinks, game evenings with co-workers after work.
I think it's massively important, because if you don't do that, you know, what we can't do, you know, when we look at people, if you work, and I think, you know, in IT, I can't remember the last time or the last person I met that just did an 8-hour day. We tend to do long hours and out of hours work quite a bit at weekend. And what we can't do is we can't expect people to come in and put in an 8, 9, 10, 11-hour day and to be 100% productive. It doesn't work that way. You know, we probably get at best 5 to 6 hours of really productive time out of people. And what we need to do is we've got to have opportunities to refresh and recharge. And, you know, teams that play together will work and collaborate and cooperate better. So I think it's critical that we have those. On the project that I ran, we didn't necessarily have virtual drink evenings, but quite often when we were doing the migrations, it would be a 12-hour migration, but people would be sat on the bridge call for 4 hours talking about football, or they would ask me about, you know, leadership, and we would just do a little bit of brown bag, or somebody would give a little, you know, a sharing of expertise, and that really helped build the camaraderie. And we've got to engage as people, not just as employees and co-workers or co-task engineers. So absolutely massively important. I think if you don't do that, then, you know, you're going to lose a little bit of the engagement. But back to Mary's point earlier, not everybody is an extrovert and wants to do that. So what we shouldn't do is force people to do it. You know, try and make it encourage them to be, make it optional, but encourage people to do it, and also try and find things that maybe they're interested in that we could participate in.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the last question, I believe I can answer that. Alexander is asking from the beginning, in a virtual environment, are dogs worse than kids? I think they can be. They can be, especially when they are puppies. So yes, they can be. I don't have kids, but yeah.
Well, I think that actually brings up an important point. Certainly, what we have to remember as well is that when we're dealing with people that in a virtual environment, if they're working from home, I'm quite fortunate. My kids are 22 and above, so they're not in the home. And my wife and I, we have the good fortune to have a spare bedroom, which is 100% my office. Not everybody has that luxury. And sometimes we need to be a little bit flexible in and around the hours that we want to be organizing collaborative opportunities. We've got to, people become empowered not only when they have the tools, but also when they can do the work at the time that best suits them. So we've got to be a little bit mindful of people's environments. And if they've got kids, let's cut them a little bit of slack. If they've got dogs, let's cut them a little bit of slack.
That's correct. That's
it happens.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you very much, Gordon. Thank you for your time. Thank you for accepting the invite. It was such a pleasure to be here with you. As we were saying before, so tomorrow we'll be sending out a post-event email, and we will include the slides and also the record if you want to watch the video again. Thank you again, Gordon. That was great.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. I just wanted to also remind everyone that we've been working on the state of the market. So we will share the link if you want to have a look. And let me just also tell you that next week, it's the final and last edition of this first series of Talent Talks. And for that, we will be inviting Mohamed Brahim. He's the CTO of Profiles Pensions in the UK. And he spent a lot of effort and time building a strong culture for his team. And then when COVID-19 appeared, he understood that he was fully wrong, that everything that he built for years was wrong. So he had to start everything again, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about that. So if you want to register for the next session and the last one, it will be on June the 3rd, and you have the link on the chat. So you just need to sign up. Again, thank you, Gordon. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. My pleasure.